Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the three myths about love. This is very important because many of us believe that love has to be in a certain way, and if it is not that way, that the other person doesn't love us. If we don't receive love in a certain way, we identify it as not being love. So go straight to the first myth of love. And the first myth is attachment. When I feel attachment to somebody, I think that it is love. Something that we have thought is important to us, that we have been told that when you have this, that's what love is all about. So if the person makes me feel in a certain way, that creates attachment and I identify it as love. That feeling of something is what makes me feel that the person loves me, but that is actually attachment to the feeling, attachment to the feeling. The second is what the person does for me. So, supposing I'm attached to what the person is doing for me, that is attachment. That is not love. It's not love. It's how we perceive love, but it is actually not love. It is actually attachment. Attachment to what the person does for me. The third is attachment to the comfort the person brings for me. So how I feel, what the person does for me, and then the way the person comforts me, the comforts that the person gives me, right? That's the attachment to the comfort that the person provides. And then the last is the attention, the time that the person gives to me. Actually is an attachment for an attention and not love. I know it's very difficult to see this clearly, but all these things are actually attachment. Of course, I'm going to tell you what real love is later, but right now I am debunking the myths that we have about perceiving love. So when somebody makes me feel in a certain way, when somebody does something for me, sometimes the person makes me comfortable or gives me attention, I perceive it. I think that that is love, but that is actually attachment. Number two myth, limitations. We have an idea in the mind that if the person does this, is when that it, I believe that that person loves me. So my mind goes and says that the person should love me. So if it's a man and he says, I love my mother or I love my sister, the wife might go, oh, so he loves his mother, so he doesn't love me. And this is the limitation of the mind, which tells us that if the person loves somebody else, they can't love others as well. So we call it jealousy, but this is how the mind interprets. The limitation of the mind is such that it interprets this means that or that means this, and then we take it for granted that if the person loves, same way with women also, when they say they love their father, the man thinks that, oh, she loves him, so she doesn't love me. And this is the limitation of the mind, which says that if somebody loves somebody else, they don't love us. This is the limitation of the mind. The second is free time. What do I mean by free time? That if the person loves me, they have to spend all their free time with us. They should be obsessed about us. They should want to spend all the free time with us. And I always talk about the dance, when you are in a dance, you are near each other, dancing sometimes very close by, and then there are parts in a dance where you dance from far away. And this is the dance of life. In relationship also, there will be moments when the person is near you, and then there will be moments where the person is little further. That doesn't mean that the person doesn't love you, right? So this is a limitation of the mind that believes that the more time somebody spends with me, they love me more. Listening to even this, listen that whatever I say is what the person listens to. And this is also a limitation in the mind, believing that if the person listens to you, that means that person loves you. Um, Most of the times, all of us do and uh, listen to everybody, but we do what we would like to do. And when people don't listen to us, we feel they don't love us. It's not true. It is just that the person is has different priorities in their life than what we have. And if the person doesn't listen to what we say or what we ask them to do, doesn't mean that they don't love us. The fourth in limitations is understanding. What do I mean by understanding? Most of the times, the belief, the limiting belief of love in our mind is that if somebody loves us, they have to understand us. And it's not necessary that the person should understand us. There are many things that other people do not understand. How much ever we love our children, there are moments when the child is trying to say something and we do not understand them. And that's when we want them uh, to explain to us, and many times they are not capable of explaining how they are feeling or what they are going through. They get angry, they get frustrated because one, they want you to understand, the other is they can't communicate to you. And so in life, just not because we are big people, we are adults, we can express ourselves very well, and that creates a feeling of like the person doesn't love me if they don't understand me. Understanding has nothing to do with love. It's everything to do with communication and the way somebody can communicate this. The fifth is hurt. And so there's a belief, a limiting belief that if the person loves us, they will never hurt us. It's also like saying that uh, everybody should be perfect. Every human should be perfect, and perfection is actually, there is a perfection in everything, but just not the way we think the perfection is. So if the person has said something or done something that hurts you, it doesn't mean that they don't love you. They might have made a mistake. They don't think the way you think, and they don't perceive things the way you perceive. And that is one of the reasons that you feel that if the person hurts you, they don't love you. Nothing to do with love. It is all to do with understanding, with um, different ways of thinking. And the last one, but not the least, this is one of the most um, important ones in at least in my life. Uh, the belief that the other person should understand me or do things for me without me saying it, or behave in a certain way without me saying it. They should know, that's the word we usually use, is they should know what I want, they should know what I feel, they should know. And there is nothing like that. uh, it's a myth from movies where they show in serials. when people show that the other person understands just with the communication of the eye. We have to be so present to be able to do that, and most of the times mm, we are not present in life. Yes, the eyes communicate, but we are also occupied with our own lives that we don't have the time to read the eyes. So not getting upset about it and knowing that this is a limitation in the mind which says the other person should know. Let's go on to the third and the most, I say this is the most important myth about love. Um, yeah, if the person is dependent on me, and in my work, I have realized that a lot of people come up to me and tell me, oh, my son cannot live without me, oh, my child cannot live without me. And I find it a little difficult to understand how they could be proud of that. Um, one thing is loving each other and feeling and missing each other. That's perfectly fine, but a person cannot live without you means you have made that person dependent on you. Or if you cannot live without that person, then you are dependent on that person, and dependency is not love. If you are dependent, then then you are in a relationship out of not out of your own choice. You are in the relationship because you have no other choice, and love is not that. If you have to be in love because you are obligated to be in love, mm, I don't think that is a very healthy way uh, of love, and I call it dependency or being dependent. So, what happens when somebody is dependent on somebody? There is no balance in that relationship, and when there is no balance in a relationship, um, people feel stuck. So the person who gives feels superior, and because the person is giving, they get tired, and also they feel stuck because they absolutely don't know how to uh, be in the relationship or get out of the relationship. And the person who receives feels inferior, also stuck and fearful because they are scared that the relationship, the comfort, the way that the relationship feels will go away. So both both the people, the giver and the receiver, uh, are in imbalance. The relationship is in imbalance, and when the relationship is in imbalance, usually it starts weighing on both the parties, and then this relationship it becomes uh, like, if you can see, the two words that stand out is the relationships makes you feel stuck. And so dependency or being dependent on someone uh, doesn't mean love. So these are the three important myths of love. Imagine a small boy, uh, maybe 3, 4 years old, who's sitting on the table playing his toys, and after a while he hears the footsteps of his mom coming out of the kitchen, and he believes and he thinks that the mom is coming his way to sit with him, to play with him, to carry him. Whatever is in his mind in the moment, he thinks she is going to carry him. And he looks up at her and he sees her just walk past. And she walks past him and he starts having the thought in his mind that says, oh, my mom doesn't love me, because if she loved me, she would come and carry me, right? And then time passes by, and he realizes that whenever he does something unusual, which he is out of the box, the parents either are very happy with him or are very angry with him. And he keeps living this life where when he does something, he doesn't know the reaction of his parents, but he knows he will get a reaction from the parents if he does something unusual. And that's how he learns to do the things which he knows will be appreciated and he feels loved. But there are moments when he tries something new and he doesn't feel loved. So he grows up and he is now 13 years old, and he realizes that this thing of being loved and not loved keeps coming in his life. So he has a epiphany and he says, oh, why am I just waiting for my mom and dad to love me? Ah, my friends can do the same for me. So he starts doing the similar things that make his friends happy. And then he sees the attention of his friends and he gets this love sometimes, and then he sometimes doesn't get. And then he keeps moving around in between the parents and the friends. But now because this is a newfound love between the friends, he keeps using those to know more where they love him and where they don't. And this is the experience he goes through at that age. And then suddenly he realizes that, oh, this too isn't working because I don't feel loved all the time. So I know how to get to this love. So what am I going to do is I'm going to find a girl who will love me for forever. So he goes looking for a girl who he thinks will love him forever. And obviously, in the beginning, when he meets this beautiful girl, he is enjoying himself talking to her. He can feel all the love and the attention and everything flowing to him. He gets very excited and he decides to get married to this girl. And unfortunately, after some time, he realizes that he isn't getting love all the time, because there are moments when this girl is occupied with her things and doing her stuff, and when he needs her, she's not around, or just what he feels. So, what he does is he says, you know what, I know children have unconditional love for their parents. So I know I will feel always loved if I have a child. And so he goes ahead and has a baby. Obviously, in the beginning, he feels love all the time with the baby, the child. But as soon as the child becomes 13, you remember the story? History repeating itself. The child starts becoming more interested in his friends. And what does the parent start feeling? The parent starts feeling unloved. Then the child grows a little older. He realizes the child leaves him and goes for higher studies, goes to find his own partner. He's again left feeling unloved. So he starts looking for friends, and he realizes that many of his friends are going through the same situation. And what they tell him is that the only way he will ever feel loved and unconditional love is by having grandchildren. When your grandchildren will come, they will make you feel loved. And what's the idea of telling you this story? this idea of the story is that we all live our lives believing that people love us, and then there are moments when we feel unloved. And we keep going from feeling loved and unloved in all the moments of life. And it's very, very painful when you go from being loved to feeling unloved. The pain as you grow older becomes more and more difficult to bear. So, what's the problem in this story? The problem in this story is the child feels unloved because of his idea about what love is all about. We are investors in love. So, what we are doing is we're actually investing in love. So, when the child does something unusual, he's actually investing his time to get the attention of his parents so that he can get love from them. It's an investment. It is very, very subtle. We don't even realize we are doing it, but we have these myths, and we have these ideas, this limiting ideas, this dependency which we think we are is love, and we think this is how we invest. By making people dependent on us, we are investing in love. By giving time, we are investing in other people. By the other person listening, or we listening to the other person, we are investing in the love. So these are different ways of how we invest in love, and we want others to give us the same treatment. Because when I speak to a lot of people, but I do this. Yes, that's your way of showing love to the other person. Not necessarily the other person has the same way to show love. But what we believe is, this is what love means to me, so I'm going to invest in this way, and I want in return the same thing. And so we are actually investing in love instead of loving unconditionally. And this is the biggest problem of this. The biggest problem is we feel unloved because we are doing an investment to receive love, and the other is we have no love for ourselves. And I have a whole session on how to love yourself and how to be independent of the love of others. How to be so loving that love flows through you. But I'm going to do that maybe next time. Right now, I'm debunking the myths of love. So I'm just going to tell you that what we are doing is actually an investment in love and not real love. Because real love doesn't mean that we wait for others to give back what we are giving them. So there is an energy of love flowing from my heart all the time. But when I start thinking of, this person didn't do this, or this person didn't listen to me, or this person ignored me, what I usually do is I close my heart. I tell myself, I'm not going to love this person because they behaved like this, or I'm not going to love the person because they didn't do what I told them. And we are actually rejecting love for them. But like I said, there is a flow of love energy flowing through our hearts all the time. So when we close our heart, what we are actually doing is not only closing the energy of love towards this person, we are actually closing the flow of love energy for ourselves too. And we live like this, closing our heart every time we feel rejected, or we, at least our mind tells us that, like, we have made these rules in our minds that if the person doesn't do this, they don't love me, so I won't love them back. And my question is, are we trying to control the person? Are we trying to control uh, the other person's life? Are we trying to um, ask from them to be loving to us? Then only we will be loving to them. And this is something which I have always asked everybody. Being loving to a person who's loving is the easiest thing to do in the world. But being loving to a person you feel is not loving to you is very difficult. So, reacting lovingly to a person who's loving is extremely easy. It doesn't take any effort, it doesn't take any of your energy. But loving somebody who you feel rejected by, or you feel that person is actually not doing what you are asking them to do, is super difficult because of these limiting ideas that this is what love is all about. Uh, if you really go to see, when we close our hearts, we are actually cutting our own love supply of energy. That's the reason we feel that no one loves us. Unconditional love is wanting, feeling, and acting for the higher good of the other person without expecting anything in return. What does it mean? That, and I will underline that, the highest good of the other person. That's our aim. That's what we are looking for. The highest good of the other. Love without conditions. When we are putting conditions on love, it is not love, it is an investment. Remember, I said we are investing so that we can get the returns we want. If we are investing, if we are loving with conditions, it is not love. It is dependency, it is limitations, it is attachment. Okay, so now let me wrap up what we have spoken today. Um, what is unconditional love? The first thing important is making yourself and the others self sufficient. Self sufficiency is love, dependency is not love. The second is growth, where both the parties in the relationship are growing. The third is understanding. Uh, when instead of thinking that the other person should understand you, you learn to understand the other person. So if the other person is having difficulty in something, our understanding will help them to grow. Fourth is communication. Communication is important because you have to be clear, crystal clear when you communicate. And for that, each one of us need to know what we want so that we can communicate it better to the other person. So we in coaching we always speak about knowing yourself and doing a introspection by asking yourself, what do I want? And once you know what you want, it becomes clearer. You are in a position to explain to others what you want. You can communicate clearly. Last but not the least, being open to love. What does being open to love mean? Being open to all the sources of love that you have. You're not only being loved by your family, your friends, and your uh, spouses, you're also being loved by your friends, the nature, the earth that holds us every minute, the wind that blows. Nature is loving us also, and that's what we have to be open to. Look, observe, enjoy all these beautiful moments, and then you will be loved. Do not shut the door to love. Open your heart and receive love in every moment of your life. Thank you. Take care.